Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4! And today, spawning in the south corner of the map playing in red, we've got Louis MT playing as the Jinn Dynasty. And up against him today, spawning in the north in teal, we've got Remilia playing as the French. Welcome everyone to Dry Arabia. And as always, hope you guys having a great morning, good afternoon or good evening. And it's exciting because we've got the Jinn Dynasty today. Of course, a new civilization for Age of Empires 4. A variant civilization, if you like, of the Chinese. There's lots to discuss, though, because whilst it is a variant civilization, there's lots of things that are different about them. I mean, we've already got something here, the Mounted Villager. It's a villager which is relatively expensive. I say relatively, it's a lot more expensive than a regular villager. 65 food, 50 gold as well. Compare that to a regular villager of 50 food. And not only that, look at the training time. 20 seconds for a regular villager, 35 for a mounted villager. So, got to keep this guy nice and safe. But the benefit you get with it is, of course, a much faster gather rate on lots of different resources. And also faster production speed, or at least in terms of building anyway. So we've got those, and early on in the game with the French, I love to see it. Going on to deer camp nice and early. Also got survival techniques, which increases the gather rate of the villagers on deer, which is something that the French love to do. Get that food in. Of course, they are very much dependent on it. When you think about their plays into the night. Speaking of which, by the way, I just wonder whether the Jinn Dynasty today will be playing their version of a feudal age night with a unit called the Iron Pagoda. We'll see, because of course, too early to tell. But I'm curious to see how that unit, the Iron Pagoda, would go up against the French Knights. Also getting wheelbarrow nice and early. It's quite a standard build actually for the French these days. Early survival techniques into wheelbarrow, into French Knights with the typical school of cavalry. But we'll see what it decides to do. I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos recently, and yeah, I've been busy recently, but it's been good to come back to Age of Empires 4 with the new DLC. I'll see how it goes. Of course, we'll need to make sure that the enjoyment levels are good. Of course, this is very much a passion project, and well, new DLCs do bring in new civilizations, new variations in terms of how the game will play, and that's always a bit more exciting. And in terms of patch changes as well, there have been a couple of things that have changed for civilizations. One global thing, though, is that town centers have been made cheaper. So that's kind of curious. In terms of stone, rather than 350 stone, it's now costing only 300 stone for an extra town center. So we might see second town center plays a bit more frequently. Probably not in this kind of matchup, though, because we're expecting to see a lot of feudal age pressure. Now, landmark choices. The Great Pasture is being chosen here by Louis MT. This is basically a combination of a stable and a grassland. Now, you might be wondering, what is even a grassland? Well, that's new. It's new for the Jinn Dynasty. It's a building that can train horses. Well, train, I say. It spawns horses, and you can use the horses to train cavalry cheaper. Quite significantly, by the way, and the Great Pasture combines both a grassland and a stable, which is pretty cool. Now, grasslands you would have to build on a grassland post, which actually start the game, well, you don't get any to start the game with, but once you build the landmark, you'll see grassland posts coming up, and that's where you can build them, I guess. We've got the school cavalry coming up for the French, nice and early. It looks like actually because of the extra build speed, this villager, this mounted villager, will get the Great Pasture up nice and early. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of kind of more, I guess, economy-based approaches with the Jinn Dynasty, so it's good to see this from Louis MT against the French. Like, I'm kind of curious to see how they will do. Also going for an early barracks, relatively early. Well, adding it in the feudal age and getting some spearmen out as well. The timing on this is kind of cool, actually, because ready for the first night, but also getting to the next stage at a good time, and wouldn't be surprised to see an Iron Pagoda or two coming out soon as well. Well, the villagers on deer here, pretty exposed. This might force him into an outpost here. Remilia doesn't have the wood for it, though. It's kind of crazy, actually. It's nice to see the tempo aggression from the Jinn Dynasty. It looks a bit faster than the French. Granted, we didn't see these villagers go out to deer camp, so there's a big part of the reason why. Of course, that would give a lot more food in the medium term, which, of course, now the French do have access to. So it could be a case of whether, the Jinn Dynasty are going for timing as opposed to stronger economy, and the French went for the opposite, stronger economy rather than timing. We'll see how this pans out, especially with the timing issue. Like, getting this food in nice and early is always good, because it means you can then go back to your sheep, which are yet to be taken as much. On the other hand, of course, Louis MT will have to venture out eventually. There we go, there's a grassland being built on the grassland post. But with the aggression that he's got, units on the field, means it should be a lot more easy for him to do that. Just go on the map, get the deer. Always have to be worried about knights flying around, but the spearmen on the board shouldn't be too much of a problem. Do you see that moonwalking spearman there for a second? It's kind of curious. Does engage now. Looks like we're really going to try and trade off some HP with this. With 3 spearmen, that could be tricky to do, actually. Brings away the weak knight. Should garrison inside the outpost and push the spearmen away. Probably will lose a spearman or 2. Now, do we see any iron pagoda follow-up? There we go. This unit is a beauty, by the way. Take a look at this. So, 200 HP, 16 melee damage, 4 melee armor. Compare that to a French Royal Knight. So, it has 190 HP, 19 melee damage, and 3 melee armor. The great thing though, by the way, not really reflected too much on the stats. Well, the Iron Pagoda actually has moderate area splash damage. So I kind of love the idea of the combination between the Iron Pagoda and Spearman. The reason why is you can engage in a fight, and when you do, not only do you get the benefit of the Spearman, just kind of a melee mosh pit, you A move, click, and just go straight head on against knights. Well, the Iron Pagoda also will get some moderate splash damage. I think that could be something pretty powerful. Something that obviously the players will be testing out. Now, with food secured with the outpost and the deer, it's got to be cautious about the gold. And committing to 2 outposts like this, obviously he's taken time, had to wheel villagers away onto wood, which means production perhaps hasn't been as strong. He's keeping the School of Cavalry running though, which is always important, and go for the archery range as well. I've got to say, I always find that cavalry and spearmen, it tends to do really well against cavalry and archers. The easier reason because you don't really have to micro spearmen as much. Archers, they're a bit tricky. You get caught out of position. You could be pounced upon by cavalry. And, you can run away from archers with your spearmen. But you can't really run away from cavalry with your archers. So you always have to be a bit careful about moving out. Going to be double archery range as well. So really committing to that. Villagers are being pulled away from the deer camp. So no more deer meat that way. Speaking of which, Louis MT expanding on the south, and despite the mounted villagers being faster, by the way, they can really run. Is committing to an outpost just to make sure that they are nice and secure, and on the gold as well. I like that kind of cautious play, because when you're up against this position here, when you're far forward, one thing you'd be worried about is a counter-attack, which Ramilia doesn't actually appear to be doing. Oh, there we go. I'll take that back. There they are. Oh, mill is down. 2 knights going to charge on through, but nothing to be gathered there. Outpost garrison inside, and this is where it becomes a bit tricky for the French, not really getting much value. Granted, Louis hasn't caused any villager deaths, but has caused a bit of idle time, forced the outposts and whatnot. Not a bad start to the game for sure. It's nice to see, though, that the French feudal age can be matched by the Jinn Dynasty. I don't think this is going to get to Castle Age anytime soon, I've got to say. Feels like both players going to stick it out in feudal, do what they can. Knights might run into trouble here. Charge comes. Oh, we'll lose 1 knight. Amelia, unfortunately, loses a big chunk of the army. Only had 5 knights to begin with. Now it's down to 4. See, the struggle for food is very real. Going to the D on the left side, which is something that, Louis MT might want to pressure. We'll see how much he commits, or whether he thinks about going to the Castle Age himself. Seems a bit greedy, but we'll see. I would like to say, by the way, a very big thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel. You guys are absolutely legends. Thank you. Special shout out, of course, to the YouTube channel members and the Twitch subscribers. Thank you. Guys, absolute legends. Well, there we go. Blacksmith upgrades coming in as well. Steeled arrow for the archers. For the Jinn Dynasty, we've got the hunting tradition, so increases the villagers' hunted meat gather rate by 20%. There's also a Dark Age version as well, by the way, of the same increase. So they are pretty. I mean, when you factor in already these mounted workers, the mounted villagers already gather food quite a decent chunk faster. Add in the upgrades, and well, you're looking at a very great unit for the economy. Speaking of which, of course, the French town centre does run faster, so these villages actually don't take 20 seconds to train, they only take 17. So you can see the big difference in villager count. We shall see if that plays a big role or not. I think as well to consider is the trade post locations. You might be wondering why. Well, in the Castle Age, you can train something called an emissary. Of course, we're not there yet. But it's a unique unit for the Jinn Dynasty. It has two abilities. One is to bribe enemy units. That's pretty cool. Basically neutralizes them. It's kind of like a Wallow almost. And the other option for the emissary is to convert the trade post into tributaries. And that spawns villagers and, well, not villagers rather, but peasants. You can't really control what they do. They just work on farms that generally spawn. So it's quite a nice farming transition for food. But of course, when you've got the trade posts out on the map like they are now, it can be pretty hard to defend at times. But there are some ways you can. You can get some Menjian upgrades, which is an emplacement. Basically spawns units. That's one way of doing it. But when you've got like a town, you know, sometimes you get trade posts in the corner, like just behind your base, and that's always a nice position for the Jinn Dynasty. Interesting, bit of back and forth. No one really engaging just yet. Bit of a cagey moment in the game. But the spearman numbers have really started to build up. Has got iron undermesh as well, which will certainly be helpful to deal with the archer fire coming out for Emilia. Not that many archers. Yeah, having to head back, charge come through by the knights. But this is where the Iron Pagoda get a bit of splash damage. And that could be pretty cool to see in action. They'll really chomp through these archers actually if they get on top of them. Knights trying to charge in and push them away, but it's not happening. Louis MT, all he has to do is really A-click here. And just the knights are trying their best to engage the Iron Pagodas without getting engaged with the spearmen. And he's doing a good job of it, Remilia, but it's being pushed back pretty hard. Oh, no, not anymore. A couple of knights are going to be going down now. And the Iron Pagodas chomping at the bit, taking out a lot of the HP from the archers. It's not looking good for Remilia. This is a bit of a struggle. Doesn't have the numbers. Now, defense's advantage will be there for Emilia, but the question is whether they can get enough units out quick enough. Towns that are firing as well, I think should be okay, but he's probably going to lose a bit of economy. Bear in mind, 16 villagers are idled, so Louis MT will be happy with this. It's a decent trade. In fact, he's going to win the fight, which is insane. Bear in mind, not only is he winning the fight, but he's causing eco damage. He hasn't killed any villagers, but that's not the thing. He's caused a big chunk of the economy to be idled. That means, well, Reminia's going to be able to afford less units. In fact, actually really going to the Castle Age, thinking about it, you can see the banked resources. That is super duper greedy considering what's happening right now. And certainly we'll start losing villagers for sure. Lost 2 so far. I'm sure there's going to be more. And this is looking rather rough, to say the least. Villagers also fighting. This is not looking good for Emilia. Yeah, the timing on this was absolutely insane by Louis MT. Spotted the idea that Castle Age was potentially coming in. Oh, the lumber camp, panic lumber camp. Don't know what that's doing there. Must be a misclick for sure. And then amongst all the chaos, it can happen. Raiding around the right side. That is not what Remilia would want. Iron Pagodas have been dealt with. And there it is. There's the guild hall. Really rushing it up with 24 villagers, but the question you have to ask yourself is, what does this give you? There aren't that many units to upgrade. Behind all of this, Louis, whilst far from the Castle Age himself, well, he's caused a lot of damage, killed 9 villagers after all, caused a lot of idle time. Looking in a good position. I wonder whether Louis is going to commit to a just continuously putting Feudal Age units, or potentially thinking about Castle Age. It does look like he's set up for the Castle Age. At least on the way. It's got the gold almost. Just needs a bit more food. And with the Castle Age in for the French, I suspect Louis would want to go up as soon as possible. There's a veterancy for the French Royal Knights, of which he has 2. Blackberries. Now, cost-wise, by the way, that's probably something we should talk about. The Iron Pagoda, 140 food, 125 gold. Or if you do spend a horse from the grasslands, you get 115 food, 125 gold. Compared to that School of Cavalry, 140 food, 100 gold is relatively neck and neck. But certainly, I love the play into spears from the Jinn Dynasty. There we go. Dragon Pavilion. There's the landmark to the castle age. Quite a cool one because it's quite defensive in a way. You can train emissaries at a discount, but also gives Menjan Muka emplacements on all the town centres, which is the unit that pops out. Basically, they train slowly and they garrison inside your town centre, and they pop out whenever enemies come close. And you could get it for keeps as well, and the Dragon Pavilion comes with it as standard. But also, of course, as you know, as landmarks do, it spawns 3 grassland posts. One thing to bear in mind, by the way, the grassland posts are pretty cool because the more horses you have, they actually give you a bit of a buff on your cavalry. Grants extra bit of health, +2 health per horse, and also +1 to all ranged cavalry. Ranged cavalry, by the way, being the Morehead tribesmen. Basically a horse archer. You can get them in the feudal age. We haven't seen them today, understandably so, because, well, why would you when you've got iron pagodas? You can use up against the French. Transition into the arbalètrière. Quite nicely done with the crossbows. Essentially here for the archery range. Quite a natural transition that the French go for, actually, in the castle age. Adding in some horsemen too, which is an interesting play. Of course, that will deal well with the arbalètrière. So nice switch, I've got to say. These two civilizations, in a way, almost play very similar in this particular manner, anyway. If you play the Jinn Dynasty in this way, quite a lot of similarities between the Jinn Dynasty and the French. Plenty of stone, though, coming in for Emilia. Maybe for a keep. I say maybe, but almost certainly. Both players playing it defensively for now, not really committing. Potentially could be thinking about relics. Let's take a look, actually. There is the monastery. There's the first monk for the Jinn Dynasty. Actually managed to sneak through with a couple of iron pagodas. And there's the monastery, and there's the monk for the French. Now there we go. The emissary has deployed on the trade post to get the tributary state. I've got to say, by the way, small apologies. I know that my voice is a little bit, I guess, hoarse today. I've been feeling a bit unwell recently, but I thought, I can't miss this opportunity to cast some of the new civilizations. Well, I say plural, but it's only one civilization that's new. It's always a good opportunity. And there's the keep now, making these units a lot more cheaper. 112 gold, food rather, 80 gold. The arbalètrière, which is making 64 food and 32 gold, of course, going to make it a little more effective. A couple of farms coming out here for Louis, and also got a couple of farms on the tributary state. Of course, Remilia having to go on to deer camp, berries, you name it. The farming transition could come as a bit of a shock, to say the least. French can often have this happen, but this is quite a nice play though for the Jinn Dynasty. The fact that they can get a couple of farms here doesn't seem like a lot, but when you got having farms is always good. Makes the transition of food just that much smoother. And you can already tell, look at the income. 1200 for Louis MT per minute. Compare that to the measly 400. And when you consider making knights and arbalètrière, you need all the food you can get. And the desperation of it all means that it now has to take berries on the forward position. A position that could come under threat before too long. 3 relics in play for the French. Always good to have. Granted, you do have the Guild Hall, but you kind of have to wait for that. Quite a significant period of time. Horsemen will have none of that. Cut that off pretty quickly. And of course, this is an interesting situation as well, because as the French, if you're not denying this, then this just escalates. It gets really, really powerful. I guess in one way, kind of curiously, the fact that this is an exposed area means that actually if the French were here, means the base is safe. Kind of gives the French a decision to make. At the moment though, the French haven't really been able to make any decisions apart from, well, we need a farming transition, adds in a second town centre as well. So potentially looking to play the late game a little bit. Oh, could see a fight here though. I don't know about this fight for Remilia. The tricky part of the situation is Remilia playing with a second town centre now. Probably has to really think about long-term economy, long-term positioning of the army. Can't really give away the map though. It's good that he's got 3 relics, certainly helps. Yeah, I can certainly see Rumilia playing a bit more defensively, and the late game might not be a bad option, considering that Jinn Dynasty still are on just one town centre. Louis MD, though, pumping out units, 48 military to 27. Veteran horsemen, lots of them, 18 of them. In fact, I think they come as a... Well, that's interesting, actually. They're listed as two separate units, because one of them is coming in as a regular veteran horseman, the other one's coming in as part of the... As part of using the grasslands. Interesting situation. Does have a spring on replacement in this, but it's not going to do too much. Too many units. Has actually switched to artillery, or crossbows rather. So horsemen, crossbows for Louis MT, steering away from the heavy units of the iron pagodas. Going to torch things down. This is where it becomes tricky actually for Rumilia. Would love to see another keep at home if he can. That'll shore up the defences. But this is looking like a... yeah, this is looking not so good. This is a big force. All three sacred sites as well for Louis. Louis might just dive this actually as it happens. Second melee attack coming on in. In fact, it's the first one, is it? Yeah, looks like that's the first one. Sacred site timer has been put in place, so Rumilia's got all the work cut out for him. Got to find a way of dealing with this army and then getting out on the map to decap a sacred site. But this first task is looking tough. Look at the flood of units here coming out for Louis. Sure, their economy is good for Rumilia, but it's the army that wins the fights and wins the wars. Engaging this, Louis, I think he just dived this. There's just way too many horsemen. Crossbows fleeing for their lives, but get completely surrounded. Crossbows there for Louis on the back line as well. Going to snap out as many of the spearmen as he can. The keep is there, but I don't think it's going to be enough. This dive is huge. It's game-changing, possibly game-winning. We'll have to see. He's going to try and torch down the secondary town centre. Maybe. But ultimately, keeping 40 villages idle. That's half the economy. Oh, this is not looking good. Camping the production as well. There it is. GG gets scored. Just too overwhelming. The Jinn Dynasty. Holy smokes, they're doing great against the French, it seems. Pretty aggressive. I'm pretty curious to see how this one pans out versus other civilizations. Anyway, if you'd like to see a little bit more about the Jinn Dynasty, I do have a summary video about them, what they are about, unique units, all the rest of it. I'll leave it as an end card on your screen right now, so if you haven't checked it out, it's only 8 minutes, gives you a full rundown. Certainly worth a check. Take care, and see you next time.